I don't actually know that much about your life when you were using. Was alcohol your faves?
That was my faves.
Yeah, mine too.
Yeah.
I loved it. What's a good thing that wouldn't have happened if you hadn't been drinking?
Oh, man, that's a good question. I'm assuming you're going to edit this. There's going to be some editing going on.
What do you mean? It's live right now, Tim Daly. It's live. It's going out all over the world.
So,
Oh, the camera's up. Hey, Tim Daly.
hi, Kat.
Listen, it's been such a long time, but before I go down memory lane, I need to thank you. You're the first guest, the first interview I've done since I left that Stoop almost 7 years ago.
Wow.
Right.
I am honored.
Thank you. I'm a little blown away. I didn't know if I'd ever be sitting here talking to anyone again. So truly, my friend, thank you for coming.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you.
Now, if I recall correctly, which is rare that I recall anything correctly, last time we were together, you're on my show, you gave me two things. I want to say a basket of apples from your farm and also a rubber bracelet that said a little less douche.
That is correct.
Really?
Yes.
Greenleaf remembers
Ding, ding,
something
ding, ding.
accurately. That's amazing. So, are you still growing apples and how's your douche factor?
The douche factor is high.
Okay. Me too.
I'm still working on getting that down, less and less until it's, barely noticeable, but, it fluctuates.
Do you test it with like a pH strip in the morning?
Yeah, it's like a mood ring.
Right.
Like, real douche, really douche, less douche, less douche. Anyway, and the apples, it's not apple season yet, but
Okay.
if I had remembered that, I would have brought you cucumbers and kale pesto
Wow.
and some other stuff from my garden.
You're about
because
it.
I'm all about it. I don't know what happened to me. When I was a kid, my dad was a gardener. I was like, oh, that is so boring. It's such old person stuff. And then in my mid-30s, I was suddenly like, I must grow food. I must grow it because it's a miracle. And I sort of believe that. I just like it.
One day we wake up and we're our parents.
Sort of, yeah.
It's terrifying.
Well, we try to, set down the bad and take away the good. Gardening was the good part of my dad.
Well, we'll get into the bad stuff, in a minute. But I want to go back to this thing about memory, about that, I'm not that great at it. How's your memory?
Well, my memory is almost entirely emotional, which I think is probably good for being an actor.
Hell yeah.
I remember how books make me feel. I remember how movies made me feel. And as Maya Angelou said, it's not about what people say, it's about how they make you feel. And so I have that. But, my memory is weird because, well, for instance, there's a story I've been telling for decades about something that happened when I was a kid. It was a story about my dad. And one time a few years ago when I was with my three sisters, I have three older sisters, my eldest is now passed, but I was sitting there at some party or something and I was telling the story and they all three looked at me and said, well, Timmy, that's a really funny story. One thing, you weren't born when that happened. And I was like, what? But I had heard it so many times that I had literally incorporated it into my memory and I swear to God I would pass a lie detector test that I was there at that moment. Turns out I wasn't born.
Are you going to tell us the story?
Oh, sure. I mean, it's just that, my father had a crazy Irish temper, and he was trying to carve a Thanksgiving turkey, and the knives were always dull. They're like butter knives. He's trying to carve the thing. Finally, he got so frustrated, he picked the turkey up and took a bite out of it and passed it to the next person. So the family passed the turkey around, biting it.
And you remember it, minute by minute.
I remember it, but also I can imagine it so well because when my dad was about to have an episode of anger, everybody got really quiet. It was you could feel it coming on. Everybody would kind of look down, like let's keep our heads down and stay out of the line of whatever this is going to be. And that was broken up by his biting the turkey and turned into laughter, which was also a big part of my story.
It's the best thing you can do. I also am cursed with an award-winning or an award-losing temper.
Good.
And I feel like the only life raft is to try to start laughing somewhere in the middle of it before it all goes to hell.
I remember I do have one specific memory of my dad who was having what I refer to in our family as a baby fit. I would call him a baby fit.
Sure,
And
he loved
was,
that.
He was having a fit about something, and it was so, it wasn't directed at me, thank God, but it was so outrageous that when he was done, I said, "Do it again, Dad." And he just fell out laughing, because it was just like a show.
That is an awesome comeback and a great way to handle it. How's your temper?
It's good. I don't have much of a temper. I think mainly because I'm scared of it. When I have had moments where I was going to go, and it's usually not at people that I love. It's usually some outside thing.
Like customer service?
Oh, don't get me started. But literally, my field of vision starts to close. I mean, and I go into sort of a trance, and I have the feeling, I haven't tested this, but that I might be one of those guys that if I really went there, that the police would have to like shoot me and then reload and keep shooting me because I would just be so.
Stop saying that.
But now I've confined it to basically inanimate objects. When inanimate objects don't cooperate with me, I can get really pissed off.
You've hell to pay.
So, one story about temper. So I have, to my shame, had maybe 2 or 3 tantrums on sets, and it's usually about sound. It's usually about I'm in the middle of something, it's important, and someone is talking or someone's phone goes off, and it just enrages me. And the tantrums I had were embarrassing to me and everybody else. So I realized that when I felt, if I could just be present, and when I felt it coming on, I would say, "May I have everyone's attention, please? I'm about to have a tantrum. And it's going to be really embarrassing for me. It's going to be really embarrassing for you. It's going to be ugly. No one's going to like it."
The fact that you can announce, "Hey, everybody, this is coming. I'm having this tantrum." Can you just stop it then?
Well, usually the sound, everybody gets very quiet, and then we can go on. But I find that, like with most things in my life, one of the things that I have continued to work on, besides being a little less douche, is being present in my own stuff, having a moment of pause where I can realize where I'm at really helps me, behave in a way that's semi-appropriate.
That doesn't require an apology afterward.
Exactly.
That sounds to me like a guy who's really has a lot of self-control. How much of the peace you're experiencing is because of your sobriety?
I would say 100%. I mean, the thing is that it's a little hard to talk about because the program that I'm doing thrives on attraction, not promotion. So I don't want to name a lot of stuff, and there are a lot of slogans in that program that infuriate me because they're just so full of shit, and they're just these bumper stickers and fridge magnets. And the thing that infuriates me the most about them is that they're all true. Like, goddamn, but I think that I think that I wouldn't be here if I didn't get sober. So that's why I say 100%. I didn't leave carnage in my wake, but I was within a hair's breadth of a lot of things that would have ended my life. So I got to say 100%.
Same here. I don't actually know that much about your life when you were using. Was alcohol your faves?
That was my faves.
Yeah, mine too. I loved it.
Yeah.
Alcohol was...
Yeah, I mean, most of the other stuff I did was, well, let's just talk about it. I mean, I loved cocaine mostly because I could drink a lot more.
How'd you stop? Did someone say it's your job or you're drinking, or it's your family or you're drinking? What brought you to the end point?
Well, I think, we're talking about memory before, and
I don't remember that.
For me, it was. I mean, again, I don't want to get too woo-woo, but it was sort of a white light moment because I was a blackout drinker.
Me too.
And I I kept doing I mean, this is all very standard stuff for people that have a problem. I kept trying to prove to myself that I had control. I'm going to stop for a week, and then I would start, and I would have a blackout. But I mean, I was driving around in blackouts. I was, I was doing a lot of stuff that I couldn't remember, and I was, losing time, losing my life. And I, had this moment where I came out of a blackout. I was under a sink having drunk a bottle of cooking sherry because everything else was gone. And this is a weird thing to say, but my mom was a terrible drunk for a long, long time, and she got sober. And so I knew that it was possible. I knew that it was out there. And her sister had gotten sober also. And I come from a long line of drunks stretching back to the Stone Age on both sides of my family.
You come by it quite honestly.
Oh God. And I am absolutely positive there's a genetic component to it in my case. But so I say with some degree of irony that, like, thank God my mom was a drunk.
Yeah.
Because,
led the way.
Because, when she got sober, and when I came out of that blackout under the sink, I was like, I need to call my mom and see if she'll tell me what to do.
It can't have been your first under the sink moment. I mean, I imagine you came out of blackout several times before that. So what was it about that particular time?
I don't know. I was just wrecked.
Yeah.
I was wrecked. And it was such a relief. Oh my God. I don't have to do that anymore. And it made, everything possible.
How long did it take for you to really shake it? So you weren't craving, so you weren't hoping for it around the next corner.
I never had craving right from that moment. It was like removing, it was like Atlas putting down the earth that was on his shoulders. Like it just went away.
Oh, thank God, huh?
And there've been, very few fleeting moments of some kind of fantasy about, and it's usually very civilized, like a snifter of brandy by the fire in the English countryside, and then
stay out of the English countryside.
Yeah, oh God, but if you follow the fantasy to its nth degree, then it gets ugly.
Yes, it never ends nicely. So your whole family was into something, right?
Mm-hmm.
So do you feel like you started using because you saw it and thought, well, that's how it's done, because your cells actually needed it, because that's how you're wired, or was it a choice?
I think probably that number B.
Number B.
No, I mean, I don't want to, do a drunk-a-log, but the first time I drank, and I was probably 12, and I drank. I'm not getting the detailed story, but and then I didn't stop until I had puked all over my house and blacked out.
Yeah.
Very first time, it was like when it went in, it was like I need more. And then of course I vowed never to drink again because I felt so terrible.
Yeah.
And that didn't work out.
Yeah.
Look, this is the thing. For most people with this problem, alcohol. I just wouldn't talk. I'm not going to talk about anybody else. For me, alcohol was the solution to all my problems. It just solved my shyness, my feeling of insecurity, my feeling of being less than everybody else, and it solved everything, all my problems, until it became my problem, and then it became my worst enemy. And there's a period of time where you just remember that it solved everything, and you try to have it keep solving everything, and it just doesn't work anymore.
Everything you just said about your drinking career is exactly how I was. Childhood drinker and best friend until worst friend. Mm-hmm. You have always had a public life, right? Coming from a public family. Mm-hmm. How did this fame, this sort of like baked in public lifestyle work with your drinking and your getting sober?
Well, I really wasn't public when I got sober. I mean, I was 26. I was
Right.
very, very young, and I did have some of the time the ability to, function. So there wasn't a ton of bad, really public behavior. And, a lot of it was just my own internal hell, the struggle with it, and the trying to navigate it, and, and all the promises that I made to myself that I broke, and, all that stuff. And I was just, I was miserable. And it's, somebody said to me once, there, if you want to have a full life, you just have to give up one thing, not everything, just this one thing, and then all the doors are open to you. And that seems to be sort of what happened.
It's amazing. I didn't realize that you were a kid when you got sober,
Yeah.
26. So, but you'd already had an acting career at that point.
Yeah.
Was there any part of you that was nervous that losing your alcoholic lifestyle would also result in like losing your mojo somehow? Did you feel like you needed that liquid courage to go out on set?
Of course. That's a classic thing for artists. If I don't get, completely fucked up, then how am I going to create? How's my mind going to be open enough and my imagination going to be vivid enough to create stuff? And I just have to say that that's utter bullshit. I mean, being a dead guy with a great imagination is not gonna do anything for the world of art or entertainment. I understand the fear of that, but part of that is, I think, just I don't know. It's an excuse, sort of.
It's an excuse. Do you remember your first job post drinking?
Let me think. October 23rd. I think actually it was a play that I did at Trinity Rep in Providence, Rhode Island, called Mass Appeal. It was a 2-character play. You're asking me to put stuff on a timeline, though, which we don't do decided. I can't. Yeah.
Listen, this whole thing about like time and memory, I'm not convinced that like remembering everything is so good anyway. I mean, maybe I'm making an excuse for my crap ass memory and for all the time I lost being drunk, but I don't know. I don't want to remember everything. Do you?
No. That said, I have like a 4 or 5 year hole in my memory after my dad left, when my parents were divorced. And, I have a few little inklings of that time. And I think that coming from an alcoholic family, I was able to disassociate. And I'm sure that was a survival
you were traumatized.
mechanism. But part of me is curious, like, what the hell happened in those 5 years? How come it's gone? It's
How old were you?
erased. Like 9 to 14. And, I sort of hate the word trauma because everybody has so much of it now. And,
everyone has so much, you're right.
And I feel like it becomes a trauma contest and everybody is triggered by everything. And, and it's funny because, in my walks through my program and therapy and stuff, it embarrassed me to talk about trauma because, or stuff, because it's like, I always had enough to eat. Like, what am I complaining about?
Yes. Yes.
I always had a roof over my head. I mean, it wasn't fancy or anything, but I know people, I went to a boarding school in Vermont, and my roommate for 2 years was a guy who, and this is funny because he's one of my dearest friends in the world, and I didn't know till, it's a long time ago, but I didn't know till 10, 15 years ago. I knew he was poor, but I didn't know he was like no shoes, not enough to eat, distended belly poor. Ugh. Like I didn't realize how bad it was. And this guy has made a great life for himself, and he's a dear, wonderful, talk about a kind person. My God. And, so if it's like a trauma contest, he wins in my book. On the other hand, I have to, realize that, my therapist said to me, she said, you've had one of the most, harrowing, childhood trauma that I've ever heard of. I was like, what are you talking about?
Right, this guy didn't have shoes.
Yeah, I was not beaten. I had food. Like, what do you mean? But there's psychological stuff that happens too. So everybody has a right to have their own, and I don't like complaining about it. I like, trying to deal with it and do something about it. I mean, look, I could sit here and get really judgmental about a lot of stuff because there's a lot of stuff that frankly just goes up my ass right now,
right,
about our culture and the way we live. But what concerns me the most about humanity is not like the deli slicer of identity or people's trauma or people's. What interests me about human beings is, are they kind? Are they funny? Are they smart? Are they interesting? When people ask me what my pronouns are, now I'm going to get in trouble, but I don't give a shit. Call me whatever you want. Just be kind to me, And I think that, the funny thing about being an actor is that we are trained to convey something beyond the words. We are trained to be able to say to someone, fuck you, and have it mean I love you. And to say to someone, you're my angel, and have it mean I want to slit your throat.
Right.
So if I feel that someone is exuding some kind of generosity or kindness of spirit, I'm good with whatever they say to me. Now, I'm not insane. I do think that, sticks and stones can break your bones, but words can never hurt you is ridiculous.
No, all we do is replay the words. When someone hurts us, it's the words.
Words can certainly hurt you, badly. It can damage you terribly. Anyway, but I think that, I won't speak for anyone. Operate more on intuition and about people than I do about pronouns and identity and all that other stuff.
Flipping the script on trauma for a second, what's a good thing that wouldn't have happened if you hadn't been drinking?
Say that again. There was
what's something good that came out of your drinking career?
Something good that came out.
Yeah, that wouldn't have happened if you weren't partying it up.
Oh man, that's a good question.
Thank you.
Geez, I'm. That's such a good question that I don't know if I'm going to be able to answer it without spending some time contemplating that. Look, I had some really funny times and adventures. And there are other times that I don't know what, I don't remember some of the time. So it's like, remember those movies, and I understand they're very entertaining, called Bachelor, what were they called? Those movies where the guys went to Vegas and got shit-faced?
Hangover.
The Hangover movies.
Yes.
So it's always funny to me that these people go and they get obliterated, and they wake up the next day and there's chaos and destruction and carnage, and they don't remember it. And the idea is, we must have had a great time. Like, really?
Right.
Seriously?
Right.
We did a lot of property damage. There's people, with, injuries and stuff. This is the problem with blackouts, that, if you get to a place where you want to make amends for bad behavior, and you can't remember the behavior, it's hard to know where to go.
I guess a blanket apology.
Yeah, I mean, yes.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, no, it's a blanket apology to, I'm not a fighter, but I know that I probably said and behaved in ways, when I was drinking that hurt some people, and for that I'm deeply sorry. I really am.
Yeah, I could definitely say the same. But that was then, and this is now. And you're president. You're president now.
Of the Creative Coalition. I will just tell you, if I were president, I would be the biggest despot. It would be a bloody reign. Yeah. But I will say, when it was over, the world would be a better place.
The world would be a better place.
Yeah, it would not be pretty if I were president.
Okay, so you're not running for president, but you are president of the Creative Coalition. Mm-hmm. What do people need to know about that organization?
Just that we're an organization that advocates for arts in public schools, for public funding for arts, and we believe that every person, especially every child in this country, should be exposed to and participate in the arts. Not because they should become a professional artist, which is something that people misunderstand, but because we know, and research bears out all over the place, that people who have exposure and participate in arts throughout their lives are more imaginative, more creative, more successful, do better in school, are more likely to do science. In short, everything about their lives is improved by having that particular part of their brain exercised.
And also, it's dope.
It's dope.
I mean,
So this is sort of my stump speech about the arts goes something like this. Art is like love. It's almost impossible to define, but we all know that we need it. And art is like air. We're not always conscious or present in the knowledge that we're breathing it in, but art does surround us like air, and it quietly sustains us. And finally, art's like food. We're not going to like everything we eat. Some of it we think is disgusting, some we think is delectable, but we can't survive without it. So let's embrace it. Let's stop treating it as though it's some luxury item or like just dessert. And let's put it on the plate with the main course.
I love that. I wish you hadn't said it anywhere before because, I feel like a VIP in my own head and I like things to be said to me the first time.
So I'll tell you one quick, I dropped something. Oh, it's a name.
Yeah.
So I was at the White House in the beginning of Obama's first term, and they invited a bunch of people, like 30 people, into this meeting, and they were pushing really, really hard for their agenda about STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, what the fuck am I doing here? Yeah. STEM, 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 STEM. And finally, I raised my hand, and I think I said something relatively inappropriate, like, excuse me, but this is bullshit. I think I said, and that got people's attention. I said,
in the presser?
No,
it wasn't.
Well, there wasn't press. This
Okay.
was a private meeting to get influential people to talk about STEM. And I said, first of all, it's a crappy acronym. It sounds like either stem cell research 100%. Or like florist convention. And people who don't already know what it is are going to think it's weird. I said, secondly, where are the arts? It should be STEAM, better acronym. Arts are the things that put technology and all this stuff into a human context that we can appreciate and use. So, leaving it out is a big mistake. Anyway, a lot of people credit me for being the first person to coin that phrase. And there has since been a congressional STEAM caucus. 2 women, thankfully, a Republican and a Democratic congresswoman, started the congressional STEAM caucus. And it's now in the National Educational Policy is the word STEAM. Now, right now, it's just a word because schools still cut the arts. That's the first thing to be cut. But it's progress, right? It's the acknowledgement that arts are not something that we need to, silo and segregate from these other, in science. Science, technology, engineering, and math are vitally important, but so are the arts. And as I recall, when I was a kid, there used to be like blah 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 School of Arts and Sciences. Arts and Science. They were together.
Yeah.
Ask Leonardo da Vinci.
Ask that guy.
Yeah.
Talk about name dropping. Did you come up with STEAM on the spot?
I did.
That's fucking awesome. You could have been, and you might not have been on your game that day. You could have called it, I don't know, STEMA or ASTEM or something else. TASM.
SATM.
Is it? That's for the next one. I like SATM. It's really good. Thank you so much, my friend. You and your Satumness have just sated this whole podcast. You've now anointed. Actually, you're a guy who starts stuff. You're the first guest on the Soberness podcast.
This is my problem my whole life. I'm too far ahead of the curve.
Yes. Yeah, ahead
It's
of your own
like,
time.
you know, by the time people catch up with me, then there's this thing, and I was like, I was there. Oh, okay, damn it. Anyway,
But it helps being able to say, I was the first guy to come up with that.
it does help.
And you were the first guest. So, namaste, my friend.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you
This
so
has been
much.
fun.
Stema. Easton?
Sedum.
Sedum. I love it. Kind of sounds dirty.